Celtic have been drawn against Aston Villa in this year's Champions League, so ahead of that game, I've decided to take a look back at Celtic's competitive games against English opposition since the turn of the century. First up came Blackburn Rovers in a UEFA Cup second round tie back in 2002. Dubbed the Battle of Britain, Blackburn were managed at the time by former Rangers boss Graham Souness, a much loathed figure around Celtic Park. Revitalised under Martin O'Neill, Celtic fans fancied their chances, but the English media backed Blackburn to advance. A late Henrik Larsson goal gave Celtic a 1-0 first leg victory, though many felt Rovers were the better team on the night. Indeed, in the post-match interviews, Blackburn captain Gary Flitcroft stated, "The gaffer said it was men against boys out there." This seemed to ignite a flame amongst the Celtic team, who went into the second leg at Ewood Park with a point to prove. O'Neill's side played Blackburn off the pitch in England, with goals from Henrik Larsson and Chris Sutton against his former club, seeing the Hoops record a 2-0 win on the night and a 3-0 aggregate victory. Souness was put in his place, and Henrik himself revealed after the match that the players knew their first leg performance was shit, but the insulting comments spurred the team on to a second leg triumph. Next up came Liverpool in that same season in a UEFA Cup quarter-final tie. Ahead of the first leg, Henrik faced a return to fitness, having missed several weeks before the game with a fractured jaw. He marked his return with a goal after just 100 seconds to put Celtic 1-0 up, but an Emil Heskey equaliser meant the game finished 1-1, and Liverpool were strong favourites going into the second leg. Liverpool were an excellent team at the time, managed by Gerard Houllier, with the likes of Michael Owen, John Honorisa, and future Rangers manager Steven Gerrard amongst their ranks. While both fans sang a beautiful rendition of "You'll Never Walk Alone" before the game, with Jerry Marsden himself singing live on the pitch, there was a sour note towards the end. Liverpool forward Elhaj Diouf took it upon himself to spit at the Celtic fans in the crowd. Diouf was fined 2 weeks' wages and suspended due to the incident, and would receive a warm welcome at Ibrox when he joined Rangers nearly a decade later thanks to the act. In his autobiography, Steven Gerrard himself addressed the incident. "It seemed to me that Diouf had no real interest in football and he cared nothing about Liverpool. For example, the way he spat a huge glob of gunky phlegm at a Celtic fan in a UEFA Cup match at Parkhead in March 2003 summed up his contentious and spiteful demeanour. A few people have since asked me if I saw any comparison between Diouf and Mario Balotelli, and I've always said no. I've got respect for Balotelli, I've got none for Diouf." Before the return leg at Anfield, many in English media had written Celtic off completely. The away goal in the first game did mean Liverpool were in the driving seat. However, Celtic produced a fantastic performance to record a famous 2-0 win thanks to a free kick from Alan Thompson just before half-time, then a 25-yard wonder goal from John Hartson just 8 minutes before the end to seal the win. Just 4 days previously, Hartson had missed a stoppage time penalty in the League Cup final against Rangers, which would have brought the game to extra time. Hartson showed great character here to redeem himself, and Celtic booked their place in the semi-finals. It would be 2006 before Celtic would again face English competition, this time travelling to Old Trafford for a 2006 Champions League group game against Manchester United. Summer arrival Jan Vinegar of Hesselink put Celtic 1-0 up, only for the morally upstanding Ryan Giggs to dive to earn United a penalty, which Louis Saha converted to level the score. Saha doubled his tally a few minutes later to give the home side the lead, but a Shinsuke Nakamura free kick levelled the score just before half-time. In the second half, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer scored a winner for Man United, and Celtic goalkeeper Artur Borg was forced to make a world-class save to prevent teammate Paul Telfer from scoring an incredible own goal. Post-match, Alex Ferguson stated, "We could have scored 10 to be honest with you, but that would not be the case in the return fixture at Celtic Park 2 months later." A famous night in Glasgow in November 2006 saw Celtic defeat Manchester United 1-0. Then manager Gordon Strachan had a long-standing rivalry with Alex Ferguson, going back to Strachan's time as a player under Ferguson at Old Trafford, and although they appeared to have put that behind him before these games, it was evident how much this win meant to Strachan. In one of the most famous goals ever scored at Celtic Park, Nakamura placed a 30-yard free kick perfectly into the top corner, leaving Edwin van der Sar helpless and putting Celtic 1-0 up with just 9 minutes to go. But that wasn't the end of the story. In injury time, Cristiano Ronaldo stood over a free kick 20 yards from goal. He fired his effort into the wall, but replays proved it was the arm of Sean Maloney that blocked the ball, leading to a penalty for the visitors. As he did in the first game, Louis Saha stepped up to take it, but this time Artur Boruc saved the spot kick, sending Celtic Park into delirium. It was one of the loudest moments ever in the ground, and Celtic held on for a famous victory. Funnily enough, most in the Scottish media didn't realise the victory meant Celtic qualified for the knockout round of the Champions League with a game to spare, and it was the English media congratulating Celtic on progression at full time. The two sides would be drawn together again in the Champions League just 2 years later. This time, it would create less happy memories for the Celtic fans. The first game saw Man United record a comprehensive 3-0 victory at Old Trafford, courtesy of a goal from Wayne Rooney and a Dimitar Berbatov double. In truth, the gap between the two sides had widened substantially from even 2 years previously. United played attackers such as Cristiano Ronaldo, Wayne Rooney, Dimitar Berbatov and Carlos Tevez in the game, while Celtic lined up with Mark Wilson, Glenn Loovens, Stephen McManus and Lee Naylor in defence. Berbatov, for example, cost more alone than the entire Celtic squad put together. It was a sign of the rapidly changing times, as the financial gap between English and Scottish football was bigger than it had ever been, and it has only increased since then. Unfortunately for Strachan, this result also meant he had now travelled to face Alex Ferguson's Manchester United at Old Trafford 10 times as a manager and had lost all 10 games. The return game did see Celtic earn a point at Parkhead at least. Scott McDonald put Celtic 1-0 up early on, but Ryan Giggs scored an 84th minute equaliser for the visitors. Less than a year later, and Gordon Strachan was gone as Celtic manager, replaced by Englishman Tony Mowbray. Celtic were this time drawn against Arsenal in the 2009 Champions League qualifiers. The first leg was at Parkhead, and though the team put in a decent performance under the new manager, they lacked the quality needed to compete, with an Arsenal team fielding the likes of Fabregas, Arshavin and Van Persie, leading to a 2-0 victory for the visitors. Both goals did contain a large amount of misfortune though. The first saw William Gallas inadvertently divert a Cesc Fabregas free kick past Artur Boruc before Gary Caldwell netted an own goal. It was Celtic's first home loss to English opposition in a competitive game since 1983. Things went even worse in the return leg. Arsenal basically played Celtic off the park in a 3-1 win, Massimo Donati netting just a late consolation goal for Celtic. Arsenal's Eduardo made himself a few enemies in Glasgow by blatantly diving to earn a penalty in this game, but the gap between the two sides was evident for all to see. It would be another 7 years before Celtic faced English competition again, when in 2016 they were drawn alongside richest club in the world Manchester City in the Champions League group stage. Brendan Rodgers had revitalised Celtic fans and wanted to make an impression in Europe. City, meanwhile, had been on a 10-game winning streak upon the arrival of new manager Pep Guardiola. Nobody had been able to stop them. In an amazing contest, Celtic went 1-0 up thanks to an early Moussa Dembele goal. Fernandinho equalised for the visitors, but Raheem Sterling deflected a Kieran Tierney cross into his own net to again give Celtic the lead. Sterling redeemed himself by equalising just 8 minutes later, and then just 2 minutes into the second half, Moussa Dembele scored again to put Celtic ahead for a third time, only for Nolito to once again level things up. The match finished 3-3, and considering the now monumental financial gap between Scottish and English football, this was a great result for Brendan Rodgers, and it was the first time Pep Guardiola failed to win a match as Man City manager. In truth, this wasn't a great group stage campaign for Celtic, as they failed to record a win, but on the final match day, they went to the Etihad and took another point off City. A 1-1 draw came thanks to an early goal from Patrick Roberts, who ironically was only on loan to Celtic at the time from Man City. No victory, but no defeat for the unfancied Scottish champions either. And that was the last time Celtic faced English competition this century, and will be until they face Aston Villa at Villa Park in January 2025. Overall, that means Celtic's record since the turn of the millennium against English sides reads as: played 12, won 4, drew 4, lost 4. Though there is a now seemingly permanent chasm between English and Scottish football, Celtic will always go into these games with a point to prove. The English media in particular may always fancy the Premier League side to come away with a win, but Celtic have proven time and time again they can cause an upset.